it's Ashley Bookish Realm, and I am back with another video. I am here to do the second half of my, oh gosh, congested, ugh. I am here to do the second half of my November wrap-up. I did already talk about some books that I read in the first half of November, so I will link that video up in the card symbol up above. I'm not going to talk about those books again. I am actually going to move on and talk about what else I read, which I'm trying to figure out where that video stopped. So hold on. Okay, so it appears that I stopped at Heroine, which I talked a lot about this book. It was probably my favorite book. If I have to pick a favorite book of the month, Heroine definitely is going to be easily my favorite book of November. So if, like I said, if you guys haven't had the chance to read Heroine yet, definitely pick it up. Now I can return it to the library because I need to return it. Okay, so what we're going to do first is, instead of going through the books first, we're going to go through some stats for the second half of November. So for the, not for the second half, but for the entire month of November, y'all, I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted. Like, I'm so surprised that I'm even filming this video, but we're just gonna keep going with it. So the total amount of pages that I read for the month was 3,668, which is about an average of 122 pages a day, which is pretty gosh darn good considering the circumstances. I read a total of 14 books. 4 of them were middle grade / children, which was 29%. 4 were YA, which is 29%, and 6 of them were adult, which is about 43%. So I am, if I'm looking at like youth, as far as like, because I think about it in terms of librarianship, if we think about youth related stuff, we're working pretty kind of like 50-50 between youth related and adult, which is, you know, what I'm kind of aiming for there. I'm really happy about myself transitioning into reading a lot more adult stuff. Not that, you know, I don't. It's just that I am consumed with children and YA stuff, middle grade, whatever, because that's what I predominantly deal with at work. But I'm glad that I'm kind of stepping in and venturing into reading more, reading more adult books. As far as genre is concerned, 3 of them were graphic novel and manga, which is 21%. Now, this is where it gets kind of funny because some of these books fit into multiple categories. So my percentages, if you add them up, are not accurate because I couldn't decide where I wanted to put them. But it's okay. This is not a big deal. We're not really going to worry about that. So like I said, graphic novel, manga, 3 of them fit to that category, which is 21%. Then I had 2 romance books that I read, which is 14%. 1 historical fiction for 7%. 2 fantasy, excuse me, for 14%. 3 nonfiction for 21%. 2 adventure for 14%, mystery 1 7%, and realistic fiction 2 for 14%. Now, the graph that's probably up here is not going to match those numbers because clearly it's gonna have more books than, y'all get what I'm saying. It's more books than what I've actually read because some of them fit across 2 categories. I'm gonna clean that up for December, I promise. As far as format, it was 50-50. I listened to 7 on audio and I read 7 physically, which is great. December is going to be so much different. This is a very heavy audio month, but for November, I still was able to kind of do half and half. One thing that I did notice is that this month of November, I read a lot more borrowed books than books that I owned on my shelf. So only 4 of the books that I read out of 14 were books that I owned, which is 29%, and 10 of them I borrowed from the library, which was 71%. Not that it's a bad thing, but I talk about this in my December TBR, which is posted before this. It's already up. That I need to start reading more of my collection because I have over 200 books that I have not read in my own collection. And, you know, I work at the library, I support the library, but I also need to read my own library, and I need to work on that. We need to get busy on that. So as far as the books that I read in the second half of September, the first of November, not September, the first one that I read was Gender Queer, which was a nonfiction graphic novel. It was 240 pages. I ended up giving it 3 stars. It is about a individual that does identify as gender queer. It shows their process of figuring out that they were genderqueer and how difficult it was to identify that they were genderqueer. And it was fascinating, but the reason why I gave it 3 stars instead of 4 was because the ending was so abrupt and it didn't really make sense. It's so hard to judge someone's work about themselves, because it's like, how do you judge the story that someone tells about themselves? Like, that's always kind of hard, but like, I couldn't give it 4 stars because that ending just didn't sit well with me. Not that it was like something bad happened, it just didn't make sense. It's like we came to this build up and then nothing happened. So I only, like I said, I only ended up giving that one 3 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was The Real McCoys by Matthew Swanson and Robbie Bear. I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I'm still trying to work my way through the second and third one. Eventually I will get there. It's just been hard reading physical books and the baby's been sick, so I've been focusing on that. But this is I would say this is kind of a middle grade, because it's about ages 8 to 12. And it is about a brother and sister duo who are kind of like solving mysteries. And in the beginning, our main character, Moxie, had a partner who she used to solve crimes with, and the partner ends up moving away. So now she's in search of a new partner, but while she's in search of a partner, she finds out that someone steals the precious owl of the school that's like a role model. It's their mascot, but a figure of the owl sits in a glass case, and somebody took the owl, and she's trying to solve it, but she doesn't have a partner, and she kind of figures out that maybe her brother might, you know, make a good partner. And what I like about this is that it has a whole bunch of illustrations and stuff in it, which I find really, really fascinating. I love children's books and middle grade books that are done in that format, because I think it's really engaging for kids, and it's really good for kids that are reluctant readers, or kids who have had issues transitioning from picture books to chapter books. Books like this are a really good fit for them, because they are so accustomed to seeing pictures and words that sometimes transitioning to just words can be kind of a shocker. So having books where there's still a lot of pictures included in addition to the words helps make that transition easier. So like I said, I need to read the second and third one of the series, but I really did enjoy this one and ended up giving it 4 stars. The third book that I read was also another children's book, and it was Mummies in the Morning, and this I listened to on audio from the library, and I really am kind of digging the Magic Tree House series, and this is the third one in the Magic Tree House series. And they're short, like this one was only 65 pages, and they're pretty formulaic. They go to the treehouse, they wish to go somewhere that they find in a book, and then something happens while they're there, and then somebody rescues them, and then they come back home and they talk about their adventure. It's pretty much the same thing in this one. It's just they were in Egypt dealing with mummies, and the same things happened. I did take a break from those because of the fact that when you have books like that, especially that are written for a younger audience that are formulaic, as an adult they can get kind of redundant, and you're kind of like, oof. So I don't want to burn myself out, so that will be the last one that I read for a little while. But I did end up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was Sea Witch, and this is by Sarah Henning. Oh, Sea Witch. We have a love-hate relationship. So I picked up Sea Witch just on a whim because the cover, first of all, is gorgeous. It is so beautiful. And then I found out that it's kind of like a Little Mermaid retelling, except it's about how the I don't want to say sea queen, but like, you guys know the Disney movie, like basically how Ursula would have become Ursula. And I was like, ooh, this is going to be good. A fantasy that's a retelling of The Little Mermaid. even though I don't really like that movie. I need to read the original story. I wish I had the words for this. So the issue with this, there's two issues that I had with this book. The insta love is ridiculous. Like, I've seen insta love that I've been like, oh, and then I see this insta love and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, 20 pages in, we have a girl pining over a guy, and it was like there was no backstory really, so it was kind of weird. It was kind of, it was a stretch. And honestly, like, nothing happens in this book. Nothing happens to the last like 50 pages of this book. Like, nothing happens. And I'm very surprised that I kept reading it, but I didn't want to put it down. And I think I didn't want to put it down because I was so curious as to how and who was actually the sea witch. I think Sarah Henning did a brilliant job at leaving us in a place where you really don't know who the sea witch is. Like, you think you do, and then but you really don't. And I think she has a gift in that sense, but nothing happened. Nothing happened. And then by the time we got to those 50 pages, I was just like anxiously awaiting the reveal. And I got the reveal and I was like, by then I knew who the sea witch was. And then it was just a point of, okay, well, how does she become a sea witch? But I didn't hate it. That's what's so crazy. It's like, I didn't hate the book, but it wasn't a favorite. But I gave it 3 stars. And I was very much teetering between 2 and 3 stars, and I just ended up giving it 3 stars because I am willing to read the second one. I'm willing to read the second one, which is how I know that, you know, it wasn't good, but it wasn't like the worst book that I've ever read. But it's hard. It's super, super hard. And I don't even want to tell you guys anything about the book because I think you should go into this book blind, but just know that it's a very, very slow book. And the plot doesn't really pick up to the last, I would even say the last 100 pages, not so much 50. The last 100 pages is where it picks up. And this book is 368 pages. So it's almost like you gotta make it through 268 pages of like extra fluff to get to the meat of the plot, which I know a lot of people are not willing to do, but I'll be reading the next one. I'll read the second one probably next year. The next book that I read, I listened to an audio, and that was Pachinko, and this by Minjin Lee. And this was a brilliantly written book. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars, and I thought it was brilliantly done. Honestly, it is a story, and it's a generational tale, which can be tricky. And it starts off with this couple, and you see how they meet. They have a daughter, and then, you know, you find out more about the daughter, who ends up having 2 sons, and how the lives go of these 2 sons. And it's not just about what happens in their lives, but also the relationship between Korea and Japan. And I had no idea that the relationship between Korea and Japan, or Koreans and Japanese individuals, was so bad. It was racist and oppressive, and I did not realize how much the Japanese did not like the Koreans in this time. And I think it goes from like probably before, was it World War II and on? I think maybe post World War II up into the 80s, maybe earlier than that. I can't remember the specific time, but I did not realize how much the Japanese did not like the Koreans, and how the Koreans were ostracized and made to feel like they were subpar, and how they were taken advantage of, how the women were treated, and how Koreans had a lot of identity issues because they wanted so badly to be Japanese to fit in, and how there's even this complex of someone who has a Japanese father, and they use it to the advantage to not let people know that they are Korean. it's great. Like, it's so crazy. It's such a hard-hitting book and a very sad book. The only criticism that I have in this book, and it could be different reading it physically than listening to an audio, but the author didn't really make it clear when the perspectives were changing. So it was awkward, and it was an awkward transition where you would change voices and it would take you a second to realize that the voices had changed and that you were actually getting the story from the perspective of a different character. I did not like that because I constantly had to rewind to be like, oh, so this is such and such. And then at one point, like, I had to look up like a character list online to kind of figure out like who was who. But familial stories like that are very difficult to write. I know that Homecoming by Y'all Jesse is another good one. Like, if you're interested in pachinko and you want some more stuff like that, I definitely would recommend Homegoing. I think Y'all Jesse does a better job at the transitions between the characters and the families. I think she does a heck of a lot better, actually. But overall, like, I thought it was great. The author actually did come to my library and do a signing and talk. Fortunately, I wasn't able to make it, but it's really, really cool. And it is a long book. It's 496 pages, but well worth the read. The next book that I read was I'm Not Dying With You Tonight. And this book is what is called a they call it a big library read. So every library in the nation can participate if they want to. I don't know if every library in the nation actually does participate. But what they do is they make it so that everybody has access to this book at the same time. And you don't have to be on a waiting list or anything like that if you want to read it physically, or not physically. I think physically, of course, that poses issues, but like e-book wise and e-audio, like, there's no limitations on who can check it out. And it's written by Kimberly Jones and Jilly Siegel, and it's about these two girls, one black, one white, and they go through this night learning more about each other and seeing things from each other's perspectives in terms of race. And I thought it was great that the girls got to know each other and learn more about each other and learn more about race through each other's perspectives. But the event that sets off the issues that happen that lead to this like riot and looting and stuff like that, like, I don't want to say think that like the LA riots, but I think that's kind of maybe where they got inspiration from, was the LA riots. But the event that happened that caused it could have been prevented. I hate to say that, but it's true. Like, it could have been prevented. Like, there was no reason why it had to happen that way, but I guess they just needed a jumping point. But other than that, like, I did enjoy it. I listened to it on audio, so it had two narrators. No, one narrator, but she did a good job. Made it seem like it was two narrators. And I ended up giving that one a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book that I listened to on audio, and this is a book that I read for Contemporary-a-thon, and I was supposed to vlog and do all this stuff for Contemporary-a-thon, but baby girl got sick, so I just decided not to put that footage up or anything like that. But this is a book that I did read for that weekend Contemporary-a-thon, and it was At the Stroke of Midnight by Tara Sivek, and it was so good. So this is a trilogy of books, and each one is from a perspective of like a traditional Disney princess. So this one, At the Stroke of Midnight, is about Cinderella, but her friends are Belle and who is a librarian. And then there is I don't want to say that the girl's name is Ariel, but I think it is. I almost want to think yeah, it is Ariel. I was like, I don't call her Ariel, but it is. And then her name is Cynthia, and Ariel is an antique seller. So basically what ends up happening is that she ends up divorced. She's a single mom, and she is trying to find a way to make extra money, so they debate going into a business of becoming strippers. And things don't necessarily work out the way that they hope, but it's great seeing the three of them together. I thought it was just a really, really fun read. I thought Cynthia was funny. I love how she went from like really, really doubting herself and like hiding stuff from her daughter, being a single mom, and like hiding the relationship that she had with her daughter's father, and learning that, you know, she needed to be more open with her daughter and that she was trying to rebuild herself, and being a single mom and finding her way into like a new relationship. And I think just because I'm like me being a single mom, like I related to that so much. I just really enjoyed it. I thought it was well written. I thought it was funny, and it was a quick and easy read. I definitely will be picking up the second one probably this month, because I need a romance to listen to. I'm listening to a thriller right now, and I'm like, I need a romance. I need a romance. And I ended up giving that one 4 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I read in November was for Contemporary Athon, and it was The Princess Diaries by Meg Cabot. So I have a physical copy of this, but I actually did end up listening to it on audio. And I did not realize that the book and the movie are so different, and I actually prefer the movie in a lot of ways, because I don't like the relationship that she has with her grandmother in this book. In this book, her father is still alive. Her father actually plays a big role in this, which I did like that her father was alive in this. I just like the relationship that Anne Hathaway and Julie Andrews have in the movie, like as granddaughter and grandmother. It's such a heartwarming relationship. In this one, like her grandmother's, she's an ass. Her grandmother is awful in this one, so I just ugh. And then Mia is unlikable in some parts. Like it's definitely from the perspective, she's younger in this. Clearly in the movie she's older. I think in the movie feels like she's about 16. In the book she's 14, and she reads as 14. And sometimes that's a little bit difficult considering like I'm like older. I'm not gonna say how much, but I'm older than 14 clearly. So sometimes reading it, it was like, it was cringy, and it is her diary. So she write like it. It was hard in some ways, but I still did like a good bit of it, and I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. I need to now read the second and third one because I think I have this in my TBR basket, but now I can, whenever it comes up, I'll just take it out because I've read it, and I may just go ahead and add this second book to the TBR basket since I have already finished this first one. All right, y'all, so that is it for my November wrap up. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Let me know what you have read in November. As always, if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more content from me, click the subscribe button. All of my social media links will be down in the description box if you want to follow me, and I'll be back with another video soon.